Okay, this is feedback on the population change question. First question, what is meant by exponential growth of world population? So exponential means that the rate of growth is getting faster and faster. So it's an increasingly fast rate of growth, or population growth gets faster and faster. 1 mark. Next question. Study figure 1 on the insert, a graph showing expected changes in world population between 2013 and 2050. The question is, describe the changes shown in figure 1. So our key thing here is to do changes. So we're going to need to use increase, decrease, quickly, slowly, and so on. So let's have a look at this graph. So this is a proportional bar chart. The first thing you notice is that the bar gets higher. So that's the total of all of the populations. So we know that global growth has a steady rate of increase. It goes up by more or less the same amount between all the bars. And then we have a look at the specifics of this graph. And the first thing that we notice is that Africa has the most rapid rate of growth of all the continents. So the rate of growth is getting faster and faster. You can see the difference between the lines. It goes up more and more. And then the next thing that we might look at is that the orange and the yellow and also Oceania, they stay practically the same. They have a very slow and steady rate of increase. They're not getting faster and faster, they're increasing but very marginally. The next thing that we might look at is Europe, and we might see that actually what it looks like is that Europe has stayed exactly the same, or you might even think that it's gone down a little bit. Okay, so if we have a look at how this was marked, for level 1, you tended not to focus on change. So you might have said Africa was this in 2013, and then it was this, and then it was this, rather than it shows a very fast rate of growth. Whereas for level 2, you actually focused on the idea of change. You talked about the growth rate, whether it was steady, whether it was fast, and you covered most of the regions and the dates that were shown on the graph. Okay. Suggest how agricultural change can affect population growth. So first of all, we need to know that the word agriculture means farming. Okay, and we need to suggest how that has affected population growth. So population growth is your birth rate and your death rate. So if we think about it, the answer here is to do with mechanisation. So tractors instead of ploughs and oxen, pulled by oxen. So that means you need fewer workers on the farm. In most developing countries, the workers are the children, so people end up having fewer children, so there's a reduced birth rate. An alternative might have said that because of mechanisation and the fact you need fewer workers, people move to the cities where you don't need children for farm work, which also results in a reduced birth rate. Okay, this question caught out a lot of people who looked at China. The Gambia answers were much better. So it says, account for the strategies adopted by one country to manage rapid population growth. So most of you stated China and you stated the one-child policy, which is a good start. But the key part of the question here is account for. So that means if you were asked to account for your actions, you have to explain why you did something. So it wasn't just a question of describing the strategies. You couldn't just tell the examiner what they did. You had to say why they did it. So if we go through some of those ideas that people got right, so you talked a lot about the fines and the incentives, and you had really specific information about those, which is excellent. But why did they use that? Well, it put strong economic pressure on people. People were not forced to do this, but if they didn't comply, then they would really lose out economically. The granny police, lots of people spoke about. So the granny police go around checking that women are taking their contraception, and they talk to them about their contraception, and they talk and they look for any possible signs that somebody could be pregnant or hiding a pregnancy. And this is the idea that there was really strong enforcement at a very, very local and individual level. So people just couldn't slip through the net. Delayed marriage and applications to have a child meant that you had reduced fertility potential. So people wouldn't be able to, because they were marrying later, they wouldn't be able to have as many children. Some people talked about the certificates that you got for having only one child, or that factories, for example, if everybody complied with the one-child policy, this factory would get a certificate, and that was our strong social pressure. So people were rewarded, were honoured for having just the one child. So there was social pressure. Lots of people talked about forced abortions. This is a controversial point. It wasn't the officials. It's not the official strategy, and it may well be denied by China. We know that it did happen, very much so, but if we're talking about that, we need to bring in the idea that it wasn't the official strategy, but it happened anyway because China really, really could force people to comply. So how did the marking work? Well, for level 3, the focus was on the justifications. It was not on the strategies. It wasn't for describing the strategies. That was a level 1 or level 2 response. So you had to justify them, say why they happened, and then giving specifics, which you did really well. So this question attracted 3 SPAG marks. Now the examiners are really strict on the SPAG, really strict. So your SPAG mark went down if you didn't use paragraphs, if you had poor spelling, if you used simplistic language, or grammar errors like wrongly used capital letters. On the other hand, your SPAG would go up if you did use paragraphs, if you did use ambitious vocabulary, you did have good spelling, and you did use good grammar. So all of this just tells us how important it is to plan our answer before we write it. Right, next question. Study figure 2, a map showing the most desirable places for retirement in England and Wales according to the Quality of Retirement Index. It might be good for some people to notice that Scotland isn't actually on this map, and it's not mentioned up here. The most desirable places are shaded or named. So let's have a look at the question. The question says, describe the pattern of most desirable places for retirement. So again, we've got this keyword pattern, and we know the formula for answering that: obvious, specific, odd. So if we start with the obvious, it's pretty obvious that the concentration of nice places to retire is in the south. Specifics, specifically the southwest, South Wales, the area around London, or you might have said specifically Poole or Torbay. And then we need to go on to our odd. So the odd one that I would pick out is this area in the northeast, which is East Yorkshire. But if you just said the northeast, that would be okay as well. So there were 3 marks for that, and we know if it's an odd number, we've got to make that many points. So obvious, specific, odd will get you your 3 points. Okay. Outline one way a country with an ageing population can encourage an increase in birth rate. This is quite important here, and they've bolded it for you. Just one way, but it's 2 marks. So you can only say one way, but you've got to get 2 marks. You've got to develop what you say. So here we are. There's an increase in maternity pay, so that women are more likely to have another child or more children, because they're not going to lose out financially. They can afford to do it. Or your extra mark could have come from giving your example, which lots of people did. In Germany, women were given 430 euros per month whilst they were on maternity leave. Okay, last question on this. Study figure 3, newspaper article about some of the problems of an ageing population. Make sure you read this. Read it with a highlighter. Okay, so we've got the people suffering from Alzheimer's. Costs to the UK have increased, that's a problem. 2/3 of the costs are paid by the people suffering and their carers. Unpaid care would cost the government even more, and the current cost of dementia is 4.3 billion per year. So, question is, use figure 3 and your own knowledge. That means you have to use figure 3. So you have to take some information from figure 3 and use it. And you must also use your own knowledge, which of course can come through a case study, and we did Germany, to look at the one or more problems. So it's 4 marks, so you would be advised to do two problems there. So the obvious first one to start with is the health costs, and here I'm quoting from figure 3, and then I'm going to develop my point that older people have longer recoveries, they stay in hospital for longer. When you've got the oldest people, so sort of people that are over 90 up to in the centenarians, people over 100, that they have the amount of health problems increases exponentially. And then I might give an example of what they did in Germany. So they increased the national health insurance contributions by 15%. So I've developed my answer, and I have used both my own knowledge and the figure 3 to answer that. And a second problem that I might pick up on is the cost of pensions going up because you've got more elderly people living for longer, and of course that puts an increased burden on the smaller number of economically active people. So the result of this is that the pension age goes up. So in the UK it was 60 for women and 65 for men, but for both men and women it's rising to 69 by 2020. Some people picked up really nicely on this point about unpaid care and the effect that might have on the carers. So some carers may not be able to work, which has an economic effect. Some people might just be very stressed and under a lot of pressure if you've got elderly parents and young